It's a rant video. That's what we're doing today. The title is probably quite doom and gloomy, but I think it is also true. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if Nexon just doesn't let Embark balance the game that Embark wants to balance the game. I don't know if Embark is just really bad at balancing the finals in general. I really don't know what's going on there. But the finals has had two massive issues since Season 1 that have not been addressed or resolved in any way, shape, or form. And I think if these issues continue, it's not going to be a good thing for the game, and I think it is going to lead to more people leaving the game over more time, and the finals doesn't have the biggest player base in general anyway, so it can't super, afford to be losing players. So the two issues I want to talk about is visual recoil and the balancing. The thing about the finals is it does everything really well. Almost everything really well. And it does almost everything much better than other FPS games like Apex or Warzone or Tarkov, if anyone's still playing that. It does a lot of things really well. Like, there's no FOMO with any of the skins. The Battle Pass is good. All of the skins are priced pretty fairly in comparison to other games. There's no pay to win, there's none of that, and the core gameplay is fun, and it's casual friendly. There's ranked rewards to grind for, even if you only get to gold or something. There's still decent like weapon skin rewards, so it does a lot of things right that other games don't get right. But honestly, the worst thing about the finals, and it's been the worst thing about the finals for a long time now, is the gunplay. The gunplay is the worst thing about this first-person shooter. The shooting is the worst thing about this first-person shooter, and that's not great. Because what's going to happen is, if there is a new game that's, kind of similar to the finals and that it's fun for casuals, there's no pay-to-win nonsense and any of that kind of stuff, what's going to happen if a new game comes out like that has good shooting, then people are just going to move to that instead. If there's like another fun game that people like that does the shooting well, people will just go play that instead. Because, like, why would you play the game that doesn't have good gunplay mechanics when you can play the game that does have good gunplay mechanics, right? So that's why I think the game's going to die if these issues aren't addressed, because some game is going to come along that's going to have good gunplay, it's going to be fun, it's going to be better than Apex and Warzone and Overwatch 2 and all of that other stuff, and it's going to do really well. The reason the finals hasn't ever really gained a whole lot of popularity is because in Season 1 and Season 2 it didn't have any marketing, on top of being infested with cheaters, having a bad rank system, and also the nukes were the meta. Season 3, unfortunately, was the season in which we started to get some marketing for that, but Season 3 was also the worst season this game has ever seen, and hopefully will ever see, due to Nexon thinking up the bright idea of introducing Terminal Attack as the game that, new players had to play before they could play anything else originally, so that was great. And now in Season 4, things have been good, but obviously the player numbers, I've never been on a super high spot, aside from when it, launched initially, because it launched at the Game Awards, and that generated some hype, but people, left quite quickly because, like I said, in Season 1, lots of cheaters, nuke meta wasn't fun, really, and the ranked mode was pretty bad as well. And also no marketing aside from that one trailer at the Game Awards until Season 3. So the player numbers have never been in a good spot, and I'm just trying to emphasize that because, this isn't a game that can really be affording to lose players. And I think you are going to lose players if you don't have good gunplay mechanics in a first-person shooter. So now I'm actually going to talk about the issues. I've just been ranting a little bit, but hey, that's kind of this whole video. So yeah, visual recoil and balancing are the two major issues this game has. Firstly, we're going to talk about visual recoil. It doesn't make sense for all of the bullets to go to the center of the screen, but then when you start shooting and full autoing with the AKM or the FAMAS, the reticle gets slightly misaligned, and so your bullets aren't actually going where you're aiming. That does not make sense. Doesn't make sense. And also the visual recoil is it's so strong that it's like every time you shoot there's a mini earthquake, but just for your character. That's honestly how it feels like when you're shooting a gun. In other games, Like in Tarkov, for example, the recoil pattern matches the visual recoil, which gives the gun like a natural, realistic feel, which is obviously Tarkov's whole thing. And Warzone even does this a little bit as well. The visual recoil will match the recoil pattern. So if the recoil pattern is like up and left and then right and up and then down and left and then up and left, I don't know, whatever it is, that will be the visual recoil as well, and they'll kind of match. Or like the recoil shake will be part of the recoil pattern and stuff like that. But in the finals, you get the recoil pattern, and then you also get this completely random, you know, visual recoil on the side that doesn't match the recoil pattern at all, that literally misplaces like it offsets your crosshair from the center of your screen by a random amount and makes it so that, you know, if your reticle is on someone's head, maybe you get a body shot. If your reticle is on their body, maybe you get a headshot. You don't really know, you just have to spray and pray because you don't know where your bullets are going because the reticle isn't aligned with the center of the screen, because visual recoil is a bad mechanic that should never be in any FPS game, especially this one. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Bullets go towards the center of your screen. Your reticle is not where the center of your screen is. Makes guns inaccurate. There's no learning curve here. There's no skill ceiling here. I mean, it's a bad mechanic, right? You can argue that there's a learning curve and there's a skill ceiling for trying to guess where the bullets are actually going if you've like really worked all of that stuff out, but I highly doubt that you have. The visual recoil is just not a good mechanic. It doesn't suit the finals at all, and it shouldn't be there. And there are two ways you can fix this. The first way the devs aren't going to want to do, and the first way is to just get rid of all visual recoil, but the devs aren't going to want to do that because they don't like buffing stuff, to put it frankly. And the second thing that they can do to help get rid of visual recoil problems and not knowing where your bullets are going is just make it so that you can have an option in-game to have a center dot that always stays there and it never moves no matter what. So even if you're aiming with the AKM, even if you're ADSing with the AKM, there's still a center dot there. And that would just mean you actually know where the center of your screen is. The devs wouldn't have to rework the reticles, they wouldn't have to rework or get rid of the visual recoil, and they just add a center dot. And this would also mean that people don't have to cheat to have good aim. So right now, a lot of content creators just have like a monitor dot on, or they have like a third-party overlay on, and third-party crosshair overlays aren't allowed. It's cheating if you are, you know, using that. You're not supposed to. It goes against the finals terms of service. So it would just be a real nice option to have one in-game, and then everyone would know where the bullets are going. It's there if you want it, and if you don't want to have it on, you don't have to have it on. And it would just be a good thing to make everyone happy. The reason I say I don't think the devs are going to want to do the first option, which is to remove all visual recoil, is because in the betas of the game, well, in all 3 betas I played anyway, which was the 2 open betas and the closed beta, there was no visual recoil at all. There simply was none. And then I think everyone kind of complained that all of the weapons were too strong, so the devs were like, oh, we can't have all of the weapons being too strong. No, no, no. We need all of the weapons to be weak, but we don't want to go managing, you know, all of the fire rates and the mag sizes and the damage of all of the weapons. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add a whole lot of visual recoil in there so the weapons aren't accurate, so that, you know, people just miss more shots. And if people miss more shots, then that means the weapons are weaker, and then there's no problem. That's literally what happened. So, yep, visual recoil needs to go. It's a bad mechanic. It makes the gunplay feel really bad, and it's like, it's not good for anyone. There's no point to it. Like with recoil patterns, there's a point to that. That has a skill ceiling. That has a learning curve. Visual recoil, there's no point to that. It's just a useless mechanic, and it's like a really lazy way of trying to buff and nerf stuff. I mean, it's fine if you want to do that for a season. If all of the weapons are too strong, then, you know, sure, you can add visual recoil to stuff to try and figure out what you're going to do to balance it, but you don't add it for 4 seasons and then probably 5, because I think it's all going to stay here until season 5 comes out anyway. So anyway, visual recoil needs to go. It's not good. No one likes it. There's no point to it, and it makes all of the guns inaccurate. Even something like the revolver. This is a semi-auto weapon, and it's got crazy amounts of visual recoil, so it's like really hard to know where the person's moving in between shots, which makes it really hard to land like 2 headshots in a row with this weapon, because you shoot, your gun goes like way up in the air, and then you have to like try and shoot really quickly again to be getting that max fire rate. So for like 3/4 of the time after you shoot to when you can shoot again, like in that downtime, you can only see for like 1/4 of that time, because the rest of the time your gun's like up in the air because of the visual recoil, and it just doesn't make sense. Like with a revolver, maybe a little bit of visual recoil makes sense to like indicates some type of weapon kick, but it can't, like, it's a crazy amount that's on it. And that's the same with the AKM has a lot of it. The FAMAS is some. The FCAR isn't so bad. The Pike has a lot of visual recoil. The revolver, and then like all of the weapons on the light, really. M11, XP54 doesn't have so much. LH1's got a lot. Sniper's got a lot. And then for the heavy, the M60 and the Lewis gun both have a lot as well, and the 50 Akimbo as well, I think. There's just a lot of weapons that have a lot of visual recoil for no reason. Doesn't need to be there, right? And removing it, like, it's going to... Removing the visual recoil is going to indirectly buff all of the weapons by the same amount, so it's going to cancel each other out. It's like you cross out the ones, like in math class when you're in school, right? Like, it cancels each other out, so there's no downside to this at all. So just, it doesn't need to be in the game. And I know the devs aren't going to want to take it out because, again, they really don't like buffing stuff, and that's just a fact at this point. So yep, enough about that now. I don't know, this is a rant video. I've probably said that already, but yeah, I'm just going off on one here. But yeah, visual recoil, not good. And if it went, no one would miss it, and the gunplay would be a lot happier. If a new player came into the game, they'd be like, oh my god, the gunplay in this game is good. And also, I like everything else about it. This is better than all of the other games. Look, I don't know if I said it already, because I've tried recording this video a couple times, so I don't know if I've said it in this video or not. I don't know if I said it already, but other, like, players will play other games. No, I think I did say it. I said something like, you know, the finals does everything really well except the gunplay. Yeah, I said that in this video. Okay. Anyway, the second problem, the first problem was visual recoil. That just needs to go. If that stays, you know, when new players come to the game, they're going to be like, oh, something is a little bit wrong with the gunplay here after like 20 hours. And then when they get to like the 30th hour, they'll be, oh, now I know. It's like the gunplay is really bad and the bullets aren't going where I'm aiming. I'm going to go play a game where the bullets do go where I'm aiming because I want to be able to shoot things, which is a perfectly normal reaction. Like, why would you play a game where the bullets aren't going where you're aiming, right? And there's only a select few weapons that do go where you're aiming. Like the model, that's pretty accurate. The FAMAS is pretty accurate. And that's it. Those are your options for the medium. You got the model and the FAMAS, and those are the two guns that are okay to use. I mean, the FCAR is like fine, but it does have a lot of a recoil pattern on there, so it's pretty difficult to use. It's a pretty punishing weapon. On the light, I mean, the shotguns are okay on the light. The bow, and then obviously like the sword and the throwing knives and all that kind of stuff. Maybe the XP54 doesn't have much visual recoil. But my point is, there aren't many weapons that you can use that are like super accurate. And if those weapons ever become, like, not meta, and, like, supposedly all of the weapons with the visual recoil are the meta weapons, that's gonna be a really bad meta. Like, right now, we're lucky that we have the model is the meta, because if the meta was, like, the AKM for the medium and the Lewis gun for the heavy, that would suck. That would feel really bad to play with. Because the bullets just wouldn't be going where you're aiming, everyone would be missing, it just wouldn't feel good. Anyway, next problem is balancing. Balancing has been a problem for a very, very long time. And it's quite funny, because I used to talk about this very same thing in, like, Season 2 or Season 3. Or like, Season 2 and, like, early Season 4. Maybe even Season 1 as well. And I used to be like, I don't really like the way all of this nerfing stuff is going. I don't think that's going to be good for the game. If everything gets weaker over time, it's gonna make the gunplay feel bad. And people used to not like that. People used to be like, oh, you can't buff stuff because power creep, and that will make the time to kill too fast. And now it's quite funny that's kind of changed because people became a little bit smarter, I guess. I mean, you can't really argue against the fact that things have been nerfed more than they have been buffed, because the model is still the meta even after being nerfed recently. So for anyone that doesn't know, this season, the Model 1887 was the meta weapon. It was the only weapon that hadn't been touched since the betas. It was the meta weapon, it got nerfed, and it's still the meta. Like, that's how much everything else was nerfed. The model was the only thing that wasn't touched since the betas. Everything else was nerfed. The model became powerful. It got nerfed, and it's still powerful. So it's like everything has got nerfed like twice since the betas. And that makes everything feel bad. Because if you keep nerfing everything, then the time to kill is gonna get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and the guns are gonna feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse to use. Instead of hitting someone like 12 times with the AKM to kill them, I don't know if that's the actual number, maybe you have to hit them like 16 times to kill them, and you just have to be more accurate with the gun, even though the like mag size isn't changing, and it's just gonna make everything feel worse. Time to kill is just gonna rise, and it's not even that. It's also because, like, it's not the same for every weapon. Like, nerfing every weapon balances stuff out, but it also doesn't balance, like, the light, the medium, and the heavy. Like, the way the guns were implemented, each class is supposed to have, like, a good time to kill, depending on their own kind of hitbox. I believe that's the way it's done in this game. So if you keep nerfing everything, then, like, the time to kill for the class's hitbox is just gonna be, like, kind of irrelevant, and then you're gonna have, like, heavies that do more damage than lights, or something like that. I don't know. This is a rant video. That statement was a little bit weird. Maybe just ignore that one. But yeah, if you nerf everything, it's just not gonna be good. It's gonna make everything feel worse to use. Like sure, you can nerf everything, and everything can be balanced, right? But it's all gonna feel suckier to use. Like, the mines are a great example. You used to have 2 mines, and now you have 1, and now no one uses mines. And it feels, it's not a good gadget anymore. Now you use gas mines or glitch traps, because you can place 2 glitch traps quickly, or you can place 2 gas mines straight away. It's the same with heavy. The heavy used to have 2 explosive mines as well. Heavy used to have 2 explosive mines. It got nerfed, and now you just use the pyro mines instead, because you still have 2 of those. C4, I believe, used to have more of those, or they did more damage or something. I'm not too sure if you still have 2 or not. But the C4 got nerfed, and now no one uses that. So, like, yes, if you nerf everything, then everything will eventually be balanced. But you could also just buff the stuff that's underperforming, and that would be much easier. Because, like, since the betas, right, everything's been nerfed. Okay? Everything. So that's a lot of things that have been nerfed. Whereas, if you just buffed the few things that were underperforming, that would have saved a lot of time. Right? Because, like, C4 was nerfed. Dome Shield was nerfed multiple times. Gas... I don't know what else was nerfed here. Explosive Mine was nerfed. Proximity Sensor used to be on a different class, I think. There's actually not that much on Heavy's gadgets that was nerfed. Dome Shield was nerfed loads of times, though. Anyway, this is a rant video. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. My point is, if you keep nerfing everything, it's just going to make everything feel worse to use. A good example of that is the Explosive Mine. That used to feel great to use when someone used to run over a mine. That felt great. Actually, another perfect example is the RPG. This used to feel really, really, really good to use. You could one-shot a light. It didn't have any dispersion. It was really accurate. It was great. You could snipe people with it. It was really fun. And now you have to, like, ADS someone to hit them perfectly with it. And if you don't hit them perfectly with it, it, like, doesn't do any damage. So people still use it because pretty much everything else in the heavy loadout just isn't good anymore. Well, the RPG is, like, still the best pick despite being nerfed so many times, but it used to feel much, much, much better. And if you keep nerfing stuff like the RPG and like the mines, which both used to one-shot lights, and now they no longer one-shot lights, that kind of, like, indirectly buffs the light, which causes a rift in the balancing. So there's just a lot of reasons why you don't want to keep nerfing stuff and keep giving in to power leak. It just makes everything feel worse, and then it just renders some gadgets completely useless, like the explosive mines. Like, there's no point to put on explosive mines when you can go with pyro mines and just get 2 uses of them, or RPG or frag grenades. Like, no one uses explosive mines. The last time I saw explosive mines was in, like, season 2, because I didn't play season 3 very much. So yeah, I really hate the way that everything just keeps being nerfed. And that, like, I know how things were when they didn't have visual recoil, and I know how things were when everything was really strong, because that was the game in the betas. In the betas, there was no visual recoil, and all of the weapons were really strong. SA-1216 was strong, the flamethrower was strong, the Lewis gun and the M60 were both strong for the heavy. The MGL-32 was, I don't know, probably not great, to be honest. The Sledgehammer was also, well, strong, but I don't think that's really been changed a whole lot. But everything was good in the betas, is my point. And now, that's not the case. anymore, unfortunately. Now you see 3 mediums running around with 3 models and 3 defibrillators. Lights, believe it or not, actually used to be somewhat viable in the betas. When they went invisible, they were like actually fully invisible, which was great. Now you can see them coming from like 10 meters away. In the betas, they were actually invisible, and their guns like did proper damage without you having to have like absolutely incredible aim. And because of the stun gun, they were also much more viable as well, because the stun gun was super strong in the betas. I didn't like that it changed your sensitivity, but the old stun gun was like, it just made lights viable. So that's an example of how nerfing the stun gun made light the worst class. Like, since the stun gun nerf, the light has not been a good class. Before the stun gun nerf, the light was like very viable, and before the invisibility nerf as well. Like, taking away the invisibility just made it so that everyone had to use evasive dash to be somewhat competitive. You're not going to get anywhere with grappling hook, and you're not going to get anywhere with cloaking device after it was nerfed. So now everyone uses evasive dash, and that's pretty hard to use effectively. But before the cloaking device nerf, everyone was using that, or a lot of people were using that, and you could make some pretty nice plays with that. It was hard to spot, but if you reacted in time, and if you did a quick 180 with the Heavy's RPG, you could one-shot the light. Like, it was more balanced. The game was just more balanced. And then Embark was like, hey, why don't we listen to the community that has a grand total playtime of 1.5 hours and has absolutely no idea what we're talking about, and we'll just listen to them and nerf all of the stuff that they say to nerf, because, hey, why not? Let's not listen to the data that we have and we collect. Let's just, you know, listen to the community that doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's what happened. Perfect example of that, just to point it out, is in the betas, the flamethrower was one of the first things to get nerfed. Its blinding effect was a little bit too strong. I don't think it was, but people thought its blinding effect was a little bit too strong, and people thought it did too much damage. It didn't, but people thought it did too much damage, and that was nerfed. Then, the SA-1216 proceeded to be, like, the strongest weapon in the game until, like, Season 2. Very, 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 very easy to just 1v3 full teams pretty consistently with the SA-1216 up until, like, Season 2. Despite, and, like, the flamethrower was the first thing to get nerfed. But the SA-1216 was way, 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 way more powerful. So, like, that's the perfect example I can think of the community having absolutely no idea what they were talking about. Like, the flamethrower was not the better weapon there, but it was the first thing to get nerfed, because some guy picked the flamethrower in one game and got, like, a good match where he had, like, 5 kills, probably in a game with, like, quick cash, and was like, oh my god, this weapon is amazing, I just got a 5-kill game and I didn't die once. And then Embark was, like, watching over his shoulder and was like, oh my god, this is insane. We have to nerf this straight away. People won't play if the game has strong weapons. Let's nerf everything. Add visual recoil. Stop the afterburn effect. Make it go into the... Nerf it into the ground. Put it 6 feet under. And then that's what happened. So, there you go. My rant is pretty much over now. Visual recoil is something that just doesn't make sense. Like, that's not controversial. It just doesn't make sense. It's a bad mechanic. And if you're gonna argue that having a mechanic in the game that makes it so that your bullets don't go where you're aiming, then I'm not gonna argue against that, because I can't argue against, like, you can't make an argument for that and then look yourself in the mirror and take yourself seriously. As far as I'm concerned. Anyway, there's just... The bullet should go where you're aiming. In an FPS game. Okay? Unless it's Helldivers. Anyway, but again, that's like a realistic game, and that's like a mechanic of it. Anyway, the visual recoil doesn't make sense. I don't think anyone's going to argue against that. The balancing, it's just nerf after nerf after nerf after nerf after nerf. This one I think is going to be a little bit more controversial, but I think most people are going to agree that, like, the nerfing is just out of hand. And that I think that was made clear to a lot of people recently with the model nerf. Again, it was the only weapon that hadn't been touched since the betas. It got nerfed, and it's still the medium meta. Like, so it means that all of the other weapons since the betas had been nerfed like 2 or 3 times. So, yep, there you go. And just to tie this all up with, like, the title and the thumbnail, if the game continues to go this way, and things continue to get nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, it means soon, you know, I'm only going to have 1 gas mine on the medium, I'm only going to have 1 pyro mine on the heavy, so mines are going to be extinct completely. Frag grenades will probably get nerfed. You're probably only going to have one use of them. All the mines got nerfed. Why not nerf the frag grenades? None of the mines one-shot lights anymore, or the RPG. Why should frag grenades one-shot the lights, right? So it's probably going to go to one frag grenade, and it does like 125 damage instead of 150. That's probably the way this is going, right? Like, I don't see why that wouldn't happen if things keep getting nerfed. That makes perfect sense to me. Literally, the RPG used to one-shot lights. That was nerfed. No longer one-shot slides. Explosive mines used to one-shot lights, and you used to have 2 charges of them. Then they get nerfed. It doesn't one-shot lights anymore. And then now you only have 1 charge of them. So it doesn't one-shot lights, and you only have 1 charge. So, like, frag grenades are next as far as I'm concerned. People like frag grenades. People use them a lot. So Brock's probably going to be seeing that, and they're probably going to be like, oh, no, we can't let people have fun using stuff that's strong in this game. We can't have anything that's strong. We have to nerf it. So I'm guessing we're going to have 1 frag grenade, and it's going to do like 125 damage or something like that. So that's probably next. And then, you know, other stuff's going to get nerfed as well. Also, completely separate topic from this video, but this is a rant video, so, you know, the Guardian turret has never been a good specialization at all. Ever. At no point since the game's launch, maybe I'll make a different video on this actually, because it really is ridiculous. At no point since the game's launch has the Guardian turret been a good specialization, let alone the meta. At no point was it like a somewhat good specialization. It's always just been okay, fine. It's been like that, you know? It's been fine since the launch of the game, since the betas even. And then at some point, I think it was during Season 3, and Brock was like, oh, hey, you know that really okay specialization that no one uses over recon senses and the dematerializer and the healing beam? You know that thing, that the turret, I think it's called? Why don't we nerf that? Because, you know, no one's using it, and no one's using it in ranked, so that means that, you know, it's super strong. So we're gonna have to nerf it so that people don't use it in ranked even more. And then it got nerfed, so now the turret's got like a weird cooldown thing on it, so if you pick it up, you don't get it back straight away. You can pick it up remotely, but if you pick it up, you don't get it back straight away, even if it's like full HP. And that doesn't make sense to me, so it's just a really random nerf. Anyway, there you go. There's the rant video over. That's it. I don't like visual recoil. It doesn't make any sense. I don't really think that's arguable. It doesn't make sense for the bullets to not go where you're aiming. And I think that should be removed from the game entirely, or at least we should have an option to mitigate that ourselves via the center dot. And then the balancing is just in a really bad state, and I feel like if that keeps going the way it's going, it's just gonna make everything fun. Like, lobbing in 2 frag grenades to a good position and like 2-shotting a medium, that's fun. If you have 1 frag grenade that does 125 damage, you can't one-shot anything anymore, and then mediums are gonna be like zipline jump pad defib. But I think frag grenade jump pad defib is like a more fun loadout. I don't know if I talked about like why this would be bad for the game, but the reason this would be bad for the game is because if you kind of take out the fun loadouts from the game, like placing mines is fun because you do like a little setup, like placing a turret and placing some mines where people can come through, like up the stairs and through the windows. That's a fun thing to do. But now mines have kind of been removed from the game, so it's not really a thing anymore. So now people can't really place mines. So maybe they'll go play a game where you can place mines. Like, you know, in Warzone 2, you can kill people with claymores and proximity mines pretty easily, especially if you have 2 of them, which is very possible. So people might just, like, if your thing is you really like setting up traps and you really like people walking over mines, you're not going to play the finals after the mines get nerfed. You're going to go play Warzone or, I don't know, Rust even. You make trap bases in Rust or something like that. And if things keep getting nerfed, like if you're someone that really likes movement in this game, and the jump pad movement gets nerfed and the zipline movement gets nerfed, then you're going to go play Apex because that's going to have better movement. And, you know, so on and so forth. Yeah, there you go. I mean, there are other issues with the game. I know everything being server-side is pretty annoying. I know getting killed around corners is pretty annoying, but I don't feel like that's super fixable, so I'm not going to talk about it. But the balancing and the nerf after nerf and the nerf after nerf and the nerf after nerf, that's fixable and doable without much issue. And the visual recoil, you know, they can offer a solution to that without too much issue either. But I don't really want to talk about stuff that can't be fixed. So yeah, season ends in 20 days at the time of this video, at the time of recording. So, you know, I don't think this stuff's going to be done for Season 5. I mean, if we got a center dot for Season 5 that always stayed there no matter what, even if you were ADSing, that would be lovely. That would be really, 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 really nice, and it would solve the, you know, visual recoil issue for a lot of people. So that would be great if that was added in Season 5. If it's not, I do want to see it in Season 6. And I also want the balancing to be, you know, done properly in Season 6 as well. One thing I didn't mention is, instead of nerfing the stuff that's strong, why don't you buff the stuff that's weak? Because that's something Embark doesn't really do. They tried it like once this season with the CL40, and then they were just like, oh, you know what, that didn't work. Let's give up on that, and then they didn't buff anything else. So let's just look at some things here. The spear isn't that good. The sledgehammer is a better weapon. The MGL32 is getting a rework, so that's kind of been mentioned already. The R.357 isn't that good. It needs something done to it, either visual recoil reduction or max size increase, because it's not in par with other weapons. Like, it takes a lot of shots to kill someone with the revolver if you're not hitting headshots, whereas with the model, it doesn't take that many shots, and with like the CL40, it doesn't take that many shots, so it's just kind of like out of place. Dual blades need a buff. The riot shield is just much better. As for the lights, V9S needs a buff, 93R need a buff. Yeah, well, V9S and 93R anyway. But there's lots of, like, underused weapons that are underused because the weapons just kind of suck. So it'd be nice to, you know, see buffs to those as well, so we can have more of a, like, stretched out meta, so we've got some options. Like, right now... Ooh, let's not remove that. So right now, if you want to play ranked, and you don't put on the Model 1887, you're gonna have a rough time. It's gonna be a real rough time, especially once you start getting into plat, because you're just going to get killed by people that are running the Model 1887. It's just, you're not going to have a great time if you're trying to run this in ranked. And God forbid you're not playing medium. You kill one person, they just get defibbed. You kill another person, they just get defibbed. You kill the third one, oh well, they get defibbed, and now it's another 1v3. So, you know. Yeah. There you go. Move visual recoil or give us the center dot to fix it. Start buffing stuff, because the nerfing isn't going to be good for anyone. And also buff the stuff that's weaker if you are going to keep nerfing stuff, which I would probably expect, because I don't see why anything would change. But I really hope it does, because if it doesn't, I feel like more people are just going to start kind of drifting towards other games where stuff is strong. Like, Overwatch is a great example. Overwatch recently added a new hero. You don't actually know what they're called, but Overwatch 2 recently added a new hero. And all of the heroes in Overwatch are strong. They're all pretty strong heroes when they're introduced, and that makes people want to get back into the game and try out the new hero and be like, oh my god, this is cool. And then they nerf the hero after a while to be more in line with all of the other heroes. They don't, like, over nerf the hero, they just nerf it to be more in line with the other heroes. So, like, if something is nerfed, people just go back to using the weapon they might have been using anyway. But if something is buffed, then people are like, oh my god, this is buffed, I'm gonna use this and have a great time with it. Overwatch 2 does that with the new heroes. Warzone 2 does that with the new weapons. The new weapons are always, like, super powerful so that people buy the skins for them, and then they nerf them back down again. But I would like that. I would much prefer to have that system than what we currently have, because if Embark was like, hey, we're going to buff the revolver, we're going to give it 15 max size and remove all visual recoil and make it do more damage and make the fire rate faster, I'd be like, yeah. Because then at least, even if it wasn't allowed in ranked or something, then at least I can go into World Tour and use the revolver and have just, like, absolute chaos, which is kind of what the finals is all about. It's gonna be, like, 3, 6, 9, 12 mediums, all with the revolver on, and it would just be absolute chaos, and that would be hilarious. But if you just, like, if the meta is the model, and you buff the revolver and you do all that stuff, people are gonna switch the model, people are gonna switch the revolver, rather. That's gonna be a whole lot of fun. But if you do the same thing, if the model's the meta, and you just nerf that, people are just gonna be like, oh, well, I guess AKM's the meta now. Hooray! You know, it doesn't do anything. So that's another reason buffing stuff is good. But Embark wouldn't know about anything like that because they don't buff stuff. Well, actually, you know what? To give them credit, they did buff the CL40 at the start of the season. But here's the thing about that. That wasn't actually meta. Surprise! Yeah, the CL40 at the start of the season was not the meta weapon. The meta weapon was still the model. That could still outgun people and that was nerfed afterwards. And the FAMAS was like still better than the CL40. The AK was still better than the CL40. The reason the CL40 was nerfed so quickly was because the casual players in Quick Cash were like, oh my god, if someone can aim at me half decently and I can't aim at them at all, then they win the fight. Yeah, it's a first-person shooter. That's how things work. In Warzone, if someone shoots at you better than you shoot at them, they win the fight, in like any 1v1. But people didn't seem to like that in the finals. People didn't seem to like that if someone shot them like 3 times with the CL40, which takes quite a long time to do because it's got a slow fire rate, that they die. They didn't like that, even though if you shoot them with like most of your AKM bullets, not even all of them, most of them, if you shoot like most of your AKM bullets at them and they the CL40, you still win that fight. Same with the model. You still win that fight because it's got a faster time to kill. But, you know, community complained about it, and then Mark was like, oh, you know what? Let's listen to the community, nerf the CL40, and we'll make the model 1887 the meta again. There you go. I've talked enough. My voice is getting sore. I've ranted enough. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be it for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Farewell.